the seller doesn't want to pay that, even though it's always been the tradition, because buyers can't afford to put a down payment on a house and pay for representation. But if they don't have representation and something goes wrong, that lawsuit is going to be a lot more expensive than helping that buyer be represented when they come to buy your house.
Hi, and welcome to Beyond the Paycheck. I'm Paula Christine. So in the past, we've talked about buying a home with our mortgage friend, Mark Edelstein, but we've never really talked to a realtor about the other side of it. Once you have to buy or find the home first before you can apply for the mortgage. So I've asked my friend Dani to come on, and she's going to talk to us about how we get started, what to look for, that kind of stuff. So Dani, if you want to say hi and introduce yourself.
Hi. So nice to be here. My name is Dani Hallsell. I'm a real estate agent with Next Home Victors out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. I've been a licensed realtor since 1997 and have worked in multiple different jobs, but always in the real estate venue. As you just brought up your friend Mark, I actually took the dog for a walk. I hope you can't hear her in the background right now. I was listening to that podcast today. I thought it was so
it's Mark?
interesting. Yes, so it was a good refresher for a lot of things. I wasn't even thinking about the USDA loans and first-time home buyers if you haven't been on the title for 3 years. So yeah, that is a great podcast if anybody wants to go back and learn more about lending and how you can afford a house. So very good.
Yeah, he's super knowledgeable. And I also like the fact that he's a divorce specialist. So I think that's really key when you're contemplating a divorce, not afterwards.
Right.
But while you're contemplating it, before you even start talking to anybody, it's great to go talk with him first, because not all income will qualify you for a mortgage. You want to make sure that you make the right choices when you're doing your settlement to be able to purchase that home. Or keep the home you want.
Yeah, I have a couple of lender friends that we've had that discussion because the attorneys are going through with the divorce prior to taking into consideration that maybe they need to sell the house and distribute the assets, or one of them wants to keep the house. And I can't even begin to start on that. So I always refer over. But yeah, that's a really good point to start with that before you sign any paperwork.
Yeah, so many people make that mistake. They're like, and it's emotional, really, when you think about the house, it's emotional to want to keep it. But sometimes it's not realistic to keep the house. You know, you might be better off moving to an apartment or buying a new house than it is to stay in your existing home.
Yeah.
But let's say somebody is a new time buyer. They've never bought before. Prices are high, and at least in Michigan, and I'm sure they're the same across the country. How do you, let's say it's a 25, 26-year-old, maybe they're making $100,000 a year. How do they buy a home?
Honestly, they're not. And that's what's really interesting. If the National Association of Realtors comes out with a buyer-seller survey every year, and the one that came out for this year, 2014, basically said that first-time home buyers, average age is 38 to 40 years old. And that's the very first house that they've owned. And the average cost for the house is usually right around $400,000. So they have put some money away because they are older. But also the first-time home buyer went from 35% of the home buyers in the last 5 years down to 24%. So you're seeing this whole shrinking pool of young first-time buyers being able to afford to purchase the property. So yeah, the answer is they're just not. And it's really difficult. So I can't say that I've ever worked with anybody in their 20s. Everybody for a first-time home buyer has been in their mid-30s to up to 40 in the last 5 years.
That's really sad, because I bought my first house at 24.
Yep. And so many people get into condos, but even the condos are higher and harder to find. But that's still a good option to get into something small. And the other thing, though, a lot of the people that haven't bought homes, they've grown up in really nicer homes with their parents, and they don't want to move into something that needs to be fixed up and live there for 2 or 3 years like our generation did, and then turn around and resell it, and then live there for 5 years and then turn around and resell it. So I think
or rent it.
Or rent it. Exactly. So, you've got your savvy people who are going to do that. And then you've got other people that, Things are going to have to change. And the biggest deal is we need more inventory. And, it stems back to after the last crisis in 2009 that we just didn't build enough new construction and homes. And it's just, is it because the builders couldn't afford it? Was it because we don't have enough workers? There's just so many different things. We need to bring trades back so that we have people that are actually going to be qualified to work for the builders. They've got to figure out how to cut some of the red tape for the builders to be able to afford to build a house and make a profit on that. So, it is a big issue, and it was a big issue that was brought up on both sides this year. So we'll see what the government's going to do in the future for the plan. I mean, it's the
Well,
great unknown at the moment.
I also think that the cost of housing is just going to go up because all the lumber and stuff is needed to rebuild in those areas that were just hit with the hurricanes.
Mm-hmm.
So the demand, I mean, there's only so much lumber.
Right,
So
right.
so they're going to raise the costs.
Yep. And you
And
saw
then,
that in COVID, the same thing, that we were getting the lumber down from Canada, and that's just, it was unbelievable the prices that went up. So, yeah, all around
yeah.
housing is more expensive. Um, we're starting to see a level off a little bit, though. They're predicting that this year we'll see a right around 4.8% appreciation as opposed to 24% that we saw back in 2020. Um, so if we stay even and we can get the economy to a point where people can, get their income to start coming up and keep the interest rates right around 6%, I think they'll start to shake some people loose.
Well, I just bought a house, so I want them to go down to 5
I
so that I can
know.
refinance. So, Dani, let's put out in the universe
I'm
5%.
I'm just parroting the gentleman who works for the National Association of Realtors, who is a genius when it comes to statistics, Mr. Young.
Okay, well, just call him and say Paula needs it to go down to 5.
Yeah, he,
6 is good. It's a percent lower, so I'll definitely refinance at
yes.
6, but 5 would be perfect.
Yeah, no, at that one point makes a huge difference. We actually refinanced 2020 or 2021, and we refinanced for a 20-year loan at 2.98%.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah, our monthly payment went up like $40 for a 20-year loan instead of a 30-year loan. So it's definitely good to follow it. And I think that's the last time we will ever refinance.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I purchased at 7, so I need to anything it goes down. 6
Yeah.
will it saves me money. And it's funny to hear me say I would love it to go to 5 when you refinanced a few years ago at 2.9.
Yeah.
And here I'm going to be happy with 5.
Well, our first house in 1998 was 7.5%. And
I
when
think
we
my
actually wrote the contract, it was 7%. And we lived in an apartment and we didn't have extra cash. So I told the folks, well, hey, we'll close in 3 months instead of a month if you'll throw the refrigerator in. It was the most expensive 15-year-old refrigerator anybody's ever bought because it went up a half a point.
yeah.
So,
So I believe my first home in 88. Is that it? 88? I think my mortgage rate was 13.
yeah, yeah, because my parents built
13%.
in 74 and it was all the way up to 18%.
Yeah,
So,
it was pretty high, but
it
it
really
went
doesn't.
down.
Yeah, and it
It,
doesn't
it went
matter
down.
what the interest rate is. It's when you put the interest rate on top of the already high prices. And 2020 was just so ridiculous with people paying $30,000, $40,000 over. And if those folks need to sell now, like you said, if they're getting a divorce, they're going to be underwater. So I'm just afraid it's going to
Potentially.
start, coming up.
Potentially. I guess it depends on what they did to the house. I mean, if they put some
It's true.
money into it, or if it's 2020 and it's appreciated over the last 4 years, who knows? They might be
Yeah.
breaking even.
Yeah.
They might be breaking even. I know for myself, I know it's not true, but I know that I seen something that came through. I think it was from my mortgage company that my house went up 6% in the last few months. I'm like, oh, okay.
Hmm.
True. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't
But
know.
you're on the lake as well. So your lake property is always going to be. Okay, no, she's on a pond.
No, I'm on the lake. I'm actually sitting here watching the swans go by.
Nice. God.
It's beautiful. So, yeah. So if you see me ever looking up, it's because I'm looking out at the water.
Yeah.
Okay. So if I'm a new home buyer, first of all, I got to find a really good realtor. And
Hmm.
I always say, talk to someone you know that
Yep.
has just purchased a house or your parents have used or whoever it is. But don't just pick someone out of the yellow. Oh, they don't have the yellow pages anymore. I
Yep.
just showed my age.
There's an online yellow pages. Yeah.
um, but how do they find out, first of all, if somebody's qualified, if they're good at their job? I mean, how do you go about choosing the right realtor?
I think it's mostly how your gut feeling. Like you said, first of all, ask for some referrals because the people who know how you deal with stuff. I might not be the best person for somebody who is, I say this, my dad is an engineer, but an engineering type who
Oh,
requires
no.
like a lot of hard data. And, I'm more of a person that I sit down and I want to hear about you. I want to hear what you need. And then I can kind of tailor what I'm going to do to what you want. Other people want somebody who's going to take charge of the situation. Other people, it's just everybody has a different personality. And the one thing that's nice about real estate is there are so many different agents. And if you hire somebody that you think is the person and you're just not meshing and gelling, then, I hate to say fire them, but tell them you would like to be released from your contract. And you can't be. You don't know anybody anything. Basically the contract is saying that while we're working together, that you're not going to be out working with another agent at the same time. So, um, yeah, so it's all personal. You do want to make sure it's a reputable company. You want to make sure that, um, you know, little things. Do they have a nice car? Do they answer their phone? Do they, just a lot of little preferences. Um,
Are they not 12 years old?
and they are not 12 years old. There's a lot of younger people, though, that are really great. I mean, it's a lot of fun working with some of the younger people and seeing how they do their marketing and online stuff. So it's good both ways. I've kind of moved more into the older generation market where I've been working more with estates and people who are downsizing or moving closer to their family. So,
Mm.
some of the younger people I think are more prepared to work with the younger people because that's the platform that they're on. That's how they communicate.
Oh, it would make sense. Yes.
Hmm.
I don't like, I know a lot of kids are on Instagram and Twitter, if it's still called Twitter, and TikTok and all that stuff.
Yep.
That's not a way I communicate. So
Yeah.
I'm
Yep.
not familiar with any of those things. Yeah, like I get it. And when you're looking for a realtor when you want to sell something, marketing is a big key.
Yes.
I know if they're not going to market it,
Yes.
and there are realtors who don't market
Yeah.
the way they're supposed
And
to
there's
help
so
sell that.
much to market and it's easy. And if, like our company, as soon as I get a property onto the market within 24 hours, the company sends me information. So it's a whole marketing packet. So they give me stuff I can put on social media, a personal website for that one listing. It pushes it out to all of the different websites like Zillow and Redfin and all the different areas. So it gets out there. Open houses, great marketing, bring people in, get face to face with them. So there's a lot of different areas that you do. Um, Big deal, professional photos. Only about 20% of the listings have floor plans. Those are really important so people can see. People are shopping online before they ever go
Well,
out and see a property.
let's talk about those photos for a second. Okay.
Okay.
So, um, is there a little tweaking to some of those? Because sometimes you walk in, you're like,
Yeah.
this is not quite what I thought it was going to look like.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the photos, I use Nextdoor Photos. I love them. And they do two or three from each room because they're trying to get the coloring right. So, um, the outside, yeah, like when they do the, not daylight, what would you call them? Like it's twilight. They always throw those. And then the second one, it's almost like back in the 80s when they would do those glamour shots. So the first one is the glamour shot. And then the second photo is like, oh, that's what it really looks like. So,
When I was looking for my house, I stopped by this open house, and I walked in and I had seen the pictures online and I was like really excited to see it.
Hmm.
And I wasn't ready to buy yet, but my realtor says, hey, just go check on it so that you can kind of get an idea of what, that price range is going to look like. And I walked in and I'm like, oh my God, this is
Yeah.
like nothing at all what the
Yeah.
pictures look like. And
Interesting.
I even said to her, I'm like, wow, who's your photographer? Because they did an awesome job. She goes,
Yeah.
yeah, I know. I think she was almost embarrassed
Yeah.
because they had done such a great job on taking the pictures.
And then they
And
probably edited a lot of stuff out if there was stuff there. And
yeah,
yeah, no,
it,
I try to keep it realistic because, like my husband says, I've never seen a bad photo online of a house. And then you show up and there's power lines going over the backyard and, the piles of trash on each side from the neighbor's yard. And, I had one house about 4 years ago was a hoarder situation. An old farmhouse was so cool, but it was really bad. And they had not done updatings. Like one of the rooms didn't have a floor in it. And so I told the
a floor?
photographer, it was like down to the Loane. It was down to, yeah.
Oh,
So it had no flooring over it.
oh, flooring. Okay.
Yeah. Some of the other rooms were really great because it had the original 1880s, hardwood and whatnot. But I knew what the flaws were. And I told the photographer, don't clean this up. I want it to look like it does because I want people to know what they're getting into. And so they took all the pictures, had like 35 of them, full description, fixer upper. I can't tell you how many agents would call me and go, the house is horrible. I can't believe that. Whatever. I'm like, did you not look at the pictures? I mean, it's not hiding anything. So,
Yeah. 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 So just so people know that what they see online might not necessarily
yes.
be what you see when you get there.
Yeah.
So, how important is it two things I want to talk to you about? One, hiring an inspector,
Mhm.
and two, buying the home warranty.
I think both are important. I'm a fan of both. In 27 years, I have only suggested once not to have a home inspection, and it was back during the 2020s when we were putting offers. This gentleman was looking for a house to live in for 4 years because his daughter is going to medical school at U of M. And we did 7 offers, got outbid on all of them. And a couple I told him, I said, well, we can't put any higher because this one needs a new roof, this needs. And we walked in a house in Ypsilanti and I'm looking at the roof. It looks perfect. Walked through. Everything is meticulous. Got down to the basement and they had an on-demand water heater. And I was like so impressed with it. And I said, listen, if I can get the homeowner to walk around the house with you, would you be comfortable to not do an inspection? He said yes. And as it turned out, this guy was an engineer and the place was perfect. And they even looked in the attic. And that's the only time anybody has ever bought a house without an inspection. Otherwise, you have to. It's so important because there's things that we can't see. There's things that people don't divulge. And it just becomes a lawsuit in the future. And you really want to avoid that. And the home warranty, years ago, it used to be very popular for the seller to get the home warranty. When we sold our first house in Ypsilanti, we got the home warranty and it covered us while we were selling the house. And we actually used it, some wiring on the side of the house in February, broke off and the heater went out. So they came out and they fixed it. It was worth every penny we paid. And then the gentleman who bought our house, it was his first home, and he actually used the home warranty for the hot water heater and the sump pump in the first 6 months. So that made me feel better, made him feel better. Everybody's covered. If your buyers or your seller's not going to pay for it, it's $450. Pay for it at closing. It covers you for the first year. And if anything's going to happen, it's going to happen in the first year because,
Well,
you're,
I did not buy it, and I had to replace my. I don't even know that it was even talked about, to be honest with you. But yeah, I had to replace my water heater
yeah,
like within 3 months.
yeah.
So
And that's not
yeah,
something that even the seller is covering up. They don't know until it goes. We're on
yeah.
our
There's
third.
no way. There's no way of knowing that your water heater's
Yep.
gonna go bad.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I wish I would have had it on my. Do you get that on your appliances too, or is it just like the
You
heater
can
and?
you can actually get your appliances through DTE and they have a home
Okay,
warranty that covers stuff.
I thought about that, but it's kind of expensive.
Well, it is. And then you have to decide for yourself, is it better for me just to put $50 away into an emergency fund a month? And then if I don't use it, it's my money. Or, we did the DTE. We did use it once on the furnace. And after that, I told Brian, I said, we're just going to take the money and put it in the bank. And so we always have a $3,000 reserve in the bank for anything that goes wrong with the house. And then
Yeah.
if we use it, just put it back in again.
Yeah. I looked at it when I first moved in here, and one of my clients, she we had this discussion about it because I think a card came in the mail about purchasing it. So I was like, it's like $60 or $70 a month. And I'm like, that's times 12, it's like $700, $800 a year. I said, I just had my water heater replaced.
Yeah.
And I bought it at Home Depot for like $500. And then, a handyman put it in for a couple $100. So I would have given that money. Yes, it would have been a wash, but maybe if you think your appliances, no, we shouldn't say that.
Are getting ready to go.
Shh.
Yeah. No, I've heard some stories about people assisting things along before the home warranty wears out. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we don't condone any of that stuff.
No.
All right. So we have the inspection. I know that's very important, but I see a lot of people giving up to get the deal, the appraisal, which I think is a little crazy.
Like the appraisal gap. Yeah.
Well, not the appraisal gap, but I know when I was purchasing, someone said they'll give them X amount of dollars and don't worry about appraisal guarantee.
Yeah.
Whatever that means.
It's the appraisal gap guarantee. So you're saying, okay, we know based on the comparables that this house, the market value, it's probably going to appraise for $400,000. But I really want the house. I'll offer you $425,000, and I will cover that $25,000 if the appraisal doesn't come in. So if it actually appraises for $395,000, you'd be paying $320,000. So you're giving them a certain amount of money that you're going to guarantee.
Say those numbers again. I think you said $395,000 and you'd be paying $420,000.
Yes. So you're thinking that it's going to come in at $400,000, but the appraisal actually came in at $395,000. Well, I promised you that I would pay $25,000 over the appraisal. So if it was actually $5,000 short, you take that $5,000 off the top. So you're not saying I'm going to cover,
all of it,
like up to whatever, you're going to do it for a certain amount of money. So
yeah, I did that on one of the houses. I said I was going to give, I think it was $20,000 over appraisal, but I ended up getting the home, which I was glad I didn't, because things happen for a reason, and I love the home that I'm in now, and I really honestly don't believe I would have loved that home as much as I love the home I'm in now. So I'm glad that all worked out.
Yeah.
But it's so different when you are buying a home, is handling those emotions. Like you really want something, and then you're like, God, I really want it. I really want it. You get that offer in as fast as you can, and hopefully they're going to take it. And then, I didn't get it.
It is such an emotional roller coaster for both the buy and the sell side. It's somebody who's moving, maybe doesn't want to move for whatever. I have a condo right now, and the lady just got married. She's thrilled to be married and moving out to Virginia with her husband, but she's so sad to leave her condo. She's been there for 10 years. Her mom lives here. So it's that constant, oh, do I want to do this? I don't want to do that. And then it affects the deal itself. Well, I want to make this amount of money. And you have to get into the fact of, I know what you want, but here's what the market value is. And then, of course, we've got the whole transition of the National Association of Realtors. They had the lawsuit. And so we've had all the changes to the buyer's commission, how it's, taken care of. It used to be that you would offer the buyer's commission from the seller side to the buyer broker. And now the Department of Justice says, no, you have to negotiate with your own buyer that commission, and then you can go and ask the seller to cover it directly from the seller to the buyer's agent. And
that just confused me. That's totally confusing.
So confusing, and it's so hard to explain. And what it's coming down to,
so it's not 6 per 10? 6% anymore?
It's
Like
never
three?
been 6%. It's always been negotiable, but that 6% was always, if let's just take it a 6% or a 2%. 6%, 3% would go to the listing broker.
Mm-hmm.
And the other 3% was being offered to a buyer broker who bought a buyer to, closing. Now the government says you can't offer that 3% or 2% or whatever in the multiple list service, but your seller can offer to give that as a concession. Well, unfortunately, so many sellers are reading all of the articles in the magazines and newspapers and are saying, well, I don't have to pay that anymore. Well, you never had to pay it, but if you want a buyer to be able to afford to buy your house, they wrap that into the sale of the house through their mortgage because the buyer always brings the funding, right? So
Oh, you're
everything that's
saying that
done.
I would, as if I'm buying a house and you are selling it,
Mhm.
then I would give the cash for the concession
You
or
would
the commission or the whatever it's called to the realtor themselves. Is that what you're saying?
No, it all gets done at closing, but see, this is why it is so confusing. Um, you hire me as your buyer's agent.
Okay.
I have you sign a buyer agency contract stating that we have negotiated that for the work I do, and I list everything I'm going to do for you, you are going to pay me 2% or 3% or 2.5%. You negotiate that out with your buyer's agent. And you would owe that money to me at close, either from your bank account, or what I do is I put it into the purchase agreement and I say that we are asking the seller to pay for my buyer's agency commission at close.
Right.
So, and what we're running into is the seller doesn't want to pay that, even though it's always been the tradition, because buyers can't afford to put a down payment on a house and pay for representation. But if they don't have representation and something goes wrong, that lawsuit is going to be a lot more expensive than helping that buyer be represented when they come to buy your house. So it
I'm
is,
still confused.
I
I'm
know, I
still
know,
so
everybody
confused.
does. So I try to explain it the best way is that it's all in the paperwork. Everything is pretty much the same. You just got to convince the seller that they are going to most likely be paying for not only me to represent you as a listing agent, but the seller's or the buyer's representation as well at closing. And that's all built into the market value.
Okay, let me summarize what could potentially happen in this is that the seller could say, I'm willing to pay Dani for selling my house 3%.
Correct.
But normally I would have paid 6%, half to the selling agent,
Correct.
half to the buying agent. Now I'm only going to pay 3. So if Susie over here wants to work with Steve, if she wants to buy my house, then she's going to pay Steve the 3% instead of it being or whatever she negotiates with Steve.
Correct.
Hmm.
But the problem is, does she have the money in the bank as well as the money for the down payment?
Yeah. Hmm.
So
Yeah, that's
basically, the people it's affecting the most are first time home buyers who don't have a lot of money in the bank, um, lower income folks, uh, VA people. I mean, VA had to go in and actually change their rules because VA, um, the buyer is not allowed to pay for any closing cost. So they had to go in there and say, okay, well, if you want representation and the seller's not doing it, then we'll allow you to do that. So the Department of Justice really jumped into this without giving everybody enough time to try to work through all the nuances and figure it out. And then, yeah, that's a surprise, isn't it?
I knew it was coming. I had heard that it was coming.
It started August 17th.
Yeah,
So,
but
yeah.
it didn't affect me when I was going through my home buying process.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that doesn't sound really cool to me, but what are you
Yeah.
going to do now at this point? You
Yeah.
just hope that. But as a seller, I'm thinking, yeah, I'm getting 3% more in my pocket.
Yes. But then if you go to buy a house, you're going to be taking that 3% and putting it back onto your buy side. The only people who truly benefit are people who are selling a house and not buying anything else.
Hmm. Interesting.
Yep.
Okay, so we got to go because it's time to go.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure talking to you. So if anybody wants to reach out to you, now I know you just work in Michigan, or do you work all over the?
I just work in Michigan, but we've got a national presence, so we do a lot of referral back and forth to people. So, yeah,
Okay,
my
so
oh,
go ahead. Somebody wants to get a hold of you. How can they get a hold of you?
my number is 734-623-9442, or you can find me on social sites or email me at danihallsell.com. And I'd love to connect with everybody. If you find me on Facebook or LinkedIn, just shout out.
Yeah, we'll put all that in the show notes so people will know how to find you.
Perfect.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. This was much
You're
easier than
welcome.
I thought it was going to be. This is my
Yeah, it's
first.
not hard. It's not hard at all. I mean, we're just having a conversation.
Yes.
It's actually pretty easy.
Well, you're one of my
Yeah.
favorite people to talk to. So, what's the last time we talked for like an hour? So, yeah.
I know. I have that effect on people. I can just, I don't know. We just talk a long time.
That's right.
So,
Well, thank you
yeah,
so much.
my life coach got in trouble because no, it was the coordinator between me and the life coach, but he's kind of, I don't know how to explain his role, but so every time he calls me, he's on the phone for 45 minutes because we were just and and he's like, oh my God, you're just so cool, and he's going, I just love to talk to you. He goes, but my boss keeps yelling at me every time I talk to you. And I'm like, well, what are you going to do? I can't help that, So
That's right.
we laugh. So
I know we shouldn't have a time frame. So
no, we shouldn't, but we do because we only have so many hours in the day. Okay. Right. So again, it was a pleasure. And if anybody wants to reach me, they can reach me at paulachristine.com.